There's something about a midnight drive on a lonely interstate that gets you thinking about life, about time, about the endless stretch of road that lies ahead. On Interstate 140, it's just me, my truck, and the pitch-black Tennessee night. The only sound is the hum of my engine and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The headlights of my truck flicker, casting an eerie glow on the deserted stretch of highway. But even in this solitude, there's a strange sense of anticipation, as if I'm not entirely alone. And that's when I see it, appearing out of nowhere, a silhouette in the darkness. Suddenly, headlights illuminate a figure on the side of the road. As I slow down, I can make out a middle-aged man in an old jacket waving. There's an air of desperation about him that tugs at my heartstrings. I pull over and roll down the window, calling out, "Need a ride, mate?" He nods gratefully and climbs in. "Mike," he says, his voice rough from the cold. "I'm just trying to get to Clarksville." I nod and shift the truck back into gear. As the miles roll by, Mike begins to share his story. He talks about a horrific accident on this very road, the memory still vivid in his mind. The dreadful moment of impact, the ear-splitting screams, the sparks flying from the crushed cars. His friend, he says, didn't make it home that night. His words paint a grim picture, filling the cab with a chilling air. The tone of his voice, the look in his eyes, everything about Mike's tale is unsettling. I can't help but feel a pang of sympathy for this stranger, this victim of a cruel fate. Mike's tale was a chilling one, and as we drove, his words filled the cab with an unsettling air. Mike began to recount his tale, one of horror and sorrow. It was a night much like this one. The road was slick with rain and visibility was low. Suddenly, the mundane was shattered by a blinding flash of headlights, followed by the deafening crunch of metal on metal. Screams rent the air, but they were quickly drowned out by the hissing steam and the crackle of sparks from the mangled wreckage. His friend, a fellow traveler, was in one of those cars, swallowed by the chaos. That night, his friend never made it home. Instead, he was claimed by the unforgiving stretch of I-40 near Clarksville. As Mike shared his story, his gaze seemed to drift away, lost somewhere in the haunting memories of that fateful night. As we neared the town of Clarksville, a sense of unease grew within me. The road ahead seemed darker, and the silence in the truck became a chilling echo of Mike's tale. As we neared the accident site, a memorial cross came into view. Its stark white against the black of the night was a sobering reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded here. The road, once a mundane stretch of asphalt, now bore an eerie weight, a silent witness to the lives lost. A weary firefighter, his face etched with sorrow, was stopping vehicles, his hand outstretched, not in command, but in plea, collecting donations for the victims' families. The sight of him, a beacon of hope amidst such darkness, was a poignant reminder of humanity's resilience. Feeling a chill run down my spine, I turned to ask Mike about his friend, about that fateful night. But the words died in my throat. The passenger seat, just moments ago filled with a living, breathing human, was now empty. No trace of Mike, not even the faintest imprint on the seat. I turned to ask Mike a question, only to find the seat next to me empty. The firefighter handed me a photograph. "Have you seen this man? He's missing." I was dumbstruck as I stared at the picture. It was Mike, the man I'd just given a ride to, the man who'd been telling me about the horrific accident on this very road. The man who, it turns out, didn't survive that accident. A shiver ran down my spine as the weight of what I'd just experienced began to sink in. I'd been talking to a ghost, a spirit unable to rest, still trapped on the highway where his life ended. I handed the photo back to the firefighter, my heart pounding. Silently, I got back in my truck and drove away, leaving the scene of the accident and the ghostly hitchhiker behind. As the miles rolled away beneath me, I realized something. Some losses linger, even if you're just a witness to their stories. And sometimes those stories can haunt you long after the last word has been spoken.